Welcome sorry, I thought I heard someone call my name. Welcome to our Aiken Senior High School Winter Band Concert featuring our 7th grade band, our 8th grade band who is backstage, and our high school band who are backstage as well. We have a great night of music for you that the students have been working very hard on over the last 3 months, so I hope you really enjoyed this. The first piece of music that we played for you was the Pokemon theme song. I picked this one because I thought that a lot of the kids came to we want a popular song that we know. Wrong. They do not know Pokemon theme song. How many people know the Pokemon theme song? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I felt old when that happened. It was like growing up every Saturday morning and on my keyboard. But that was a fun one to play, and it's actually super educational, and they learned a lot doing it as well. Our next one that we're going to play is Carpathia by William Owens. I want to read a little bit of the program notes before we play this one. This is a super cool tune. It's about the RMS Carpathia, which was the ship. It was sailing from New York. It's a ship, and it was the ship that got the distress call from the Titanic. So it put its engines on full bore, actually reached 17 knots, and it was only a 14-knot vessel, which is super cool. But you're going to hear some stuff in the piece that kind of replicates those sounds. You'll hear the first row kind of doing foot rumbles. It's supposed to be like the engine room shaking. You'll hear steam doing that kind of stuff in the first row as well. You hear ship's bells in the back and percussion. Yeah, it's a super fun piece to learn. This is Carpathia by William Owens. This time. I got told by a couple of students that I should talk better at concerts, so I wrote ideas down rather than having them in. So before they play their last piece, I want to acknowledge all the hard work they've done over the past 3 months, over the past year, over the past 3 years. The music that I picked for this concert has been the hardest that they've played so far, and they've really stepped up to it. I'm really proud of them. They're doing great. They're playing 3 grade 2s, which I know doesn't mean the most to everybody out here, but that's really good for a 7th grade band. It's a really strong place to be in. So give them one round of applause. I want to tell a short story before we play our last piece. Cameron, I'm going to call you out if that's okay. He says, I don't know about this at all. He came to me today. He came to bother me during my lunchtime, as he always does every day. He's sorry, you know? He's like, yeah, I do. But I love it. He came to actually help set up the stage. He's like, I came 10 minutes early for lunch. I want to help set up the stage. And I was like, that's awesome. It was already set up, but that's still awesome. He looked at me and was like, I don't think we're ready for a concert tonight. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, I just don't think we're ready. And I was like, why? He did say that. I was like, why don't you think you're ready? And he kind of was like, well, right here we're kind of having these issues, and over here we're having these issues. And this doesn't sound too good. And I looked at him and I was like, are you better now than you were 3 months ago? And you said, he said yes. And I'm going to turn to the band now and say, that's what I want you guys to worry about. I know concerts feel like a final product, and what we do during class is for this, but what we do during class is for you to get better 1% every day, okay? And you're doing an awesome job. So give yourself a round of applause. Our last piece is Groovy by Richard Elsesky. We're now going to have 7th graders exit the stage and come sit down here. Please give us one moment to get the 8th grade band up on the stage. The North Face by Jay Bocook. I'm gonna have another little heart-to-heart with this group now. I know I had one with my 7th graders, but I want to share with you all how much fun this group of 8th graders has been this year. I feel like we've been having a lot of fun in class lately, right? Maybe, I don't know, yeah. Maybe they're like, yeah, it's all right, whatever. I've been having fun. I've been really looking forward to teaching these kids every other day. And they bring a lot of energy, right? But it's really good energy. It's happening often that I'll cut off the band and I'll go to talk and there's Caden. You know, in a good way. He's like, well, I think this sounded like this and I think this sounded like this, which is showing that they're into it and it's showing that they're really building the musical maturity. So you should be super proud of them because they're just awesome kids and they're so much fun to work with. We have one more for you. This is Gothic by Tyler Arcaro. And please give us one moment to get our high school band on stage. Thank you so much. Actually, I have announcements before we get our high school band on stage. And that's why I made the list. That is good. For this concert. So, here are some upcoming dates. I know some of this is more focused towards high school. Unfortunately, we will not be attending contest next week. It was scheduled for Wednesday, March 3rd. We will not be attending contest, so that is canceled, okay? After that, Thursday, April 3rd to Sunday, April 6th is musical weekend. It's Footloose. Please buy your tickets. It's going to be great, okay? Then coming up Thursday, April 10th is our solo ensemble / jazz band performance in Hinkley. So we're not going to large group contests. We are still doing our solo ensemble contest with the high schoolers. That is in Hinkley. And then looking forward, it's pretty far out. We still have 3 months. We're at our winter concert right now. But our spring concert, our 5 through 12 big one that we've been doing every year, is Thursday, May 23rd. So I am looking, as always, for people who would be willing to do some baked goods for that, because we do the jazz band in the cafeteria, and it's always fun to have cookies and brownies and things of the like. So if you are willing to bake some for that end of the year concert, please send me an email, okay? Donations are very much accepted. So yeah, give us one moment to our high school band out on stage. Thank you. A lot of power in that one. That one's fun. Every year, for contest, we have to pick a piece off of a pre-approved list, and I always have such a hard time looking at the pre-approved list and finding one that I like, and I think we all kind of liked that one. So, yeah, that was Alchemy by Gary Gibson. Let me flip my page over here. I think our next piece, Redemption, has probably been our most favorite, my most favorite, some people's most favorite piece of the concert. It really shows how this group has grown musically and in their musical maturity. I bought this piece my first year as a teacher 3 years ago, and I finally have a group who I feel very comfortable putting this in front of. Slow pieces are hard, and they take a lot of work. They take a lot of breath support. They take a lot of thinking, even though you don't think they would. They're very tricky, and they're very tricky to make sound good, but they've just been crushing this piece. This is Redemption by the Son of Thornton. Also, I left out, I put the solos in the program. I left out Riley, so there is also Riley doing an alto saxophone solo here as well. Oh, I love that. It sounds so much fun. So great. I'm going to do my thank yous now. I want to extend a thank you to our admin for supporting the arts and everything we do here at AHS, putting together musical band, sending us to contests, sending us to honor bands and all the things. They do an awesome job supporting us, so thank you to them. To our custodians for all the background work that goes into running events like these. It's not easy. And to my music colleagues for helping getting these students where they are now. They wouldn't be where they are now without Jen and Lucy and Kelly and everybody that's put a lot of hard work into these students' lives. To my fellow teachers for always answering phone calls when I'm trying to track down students for lessons. Thank you to them, because they tend to forget. And thank you to all of you for being amazing. I don't know what you're doing. Thank you for all the students for being amazing. These kids are doing sports, FFA, BPA, NHS, Knowledge Bowl, choir, band, everything. And one job is enough for me. I'm good at the end of the day. So please give them a round of applause for doing such amazing work. And one final thank you to my fiance, Allison. Well, thank you for supporting my job and supporting these kids. It means a lot. Okay? We have one final piece for you. This one's a little more upbeat. This is Country Club Stomp. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you all so much again. Give everybody else one more round of applause.